When we look at this application problem, we have a journal. This should make sense to you now. A month ago, you would have had no idea what this was and what you do with it. So I'm saying you have learned a lot already in accounting because everyone came in with the same amount of knowledge. Nothing. You got nothing. Never done accounting before. So we have transactions that are recorded on here. We put them in a journal. We have our debits and credit parts. Now, really what we're going to be focusing on a lot for this chapter is this column right here called dun, 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 post reference. Okay? So what we're going to be learning in this chapter is how to post. Okay? So for those of you that ride horse, it has nothing to do with how you ride it. Posting is different. So any horse riders in here? Would have been funny if you rode a horse. Guess not. Okay. So what we have down here on the bottom are our ledger accounts. And I want to take some time right now just to look at a ledger account. So when I look at this ledger account right here, on the very top, on the left-hand side, I have my account title. On the right-hand side, I have my account number. Remember, your number clues you in to what this classification is. Right here, account number is 1, so therefore I know asset, besides the fact that it's cash, and cash is an asset, and the definition of an asset is anything that you own that has value. Looking at this account, moving left to right, let's take a look at the columns. Date. You will notice that this date column looks very similar to this one. We have one column where you'll put the month in and one column that you would put in the day. Right here we have an item column. Let me tell you, in chapter 4 you won't be putting anything in the item column unless you have to carry forward, which is not going to be very often. So 90% of the time this column is going to be left blank. Notice we have this other column here again called post reference. Remember chapter 3 I said just ignore post reference column, we have a whole chapter. This is your whole chapter. Okay, so this column right here means where did you get the information from? Well, we got it from the journal. What page of our journal? If I look up, it's page 1 of the journal. So that tells me where I got the information from. Then notice right here I have debit credit. And here I have a column that says balance debit and credit. Now this is where your accounting world is going to be rocked a little bit because you're not making your debits and credits equal. Okay, you're not recording a transaction right now. What you're doing is you're taking that information from a journal where your debits and credits equal, and then you're just putting that in an account so we have a balance, so we know what it is there. So we have a debit and a credit and a debit and a credit. This debit and credit right here is the individual amount of the transaction and how it's being affected. And this right here gives us a running balance, so we know what the balance is in the account. Okay? So we'll go through and take a look at that. When we post, how you do it matters. Okay? We start at the top of the journal and we work our way down. Do not go through and just randomly fill in all of these numbers and then go down here. It will screw you up and you will lose lots of points and you won't understand why. So let me tell you, some of you are like, oh, it'll be faster to do it this way. This isn't about the fastest way to get it done. It's about getting it done correctly. So we start at the top of our journal. We'll do line 1 of our journal. We'll post it, and then we go back up and we do line 2. And we post it. And line 3, and we post it. Because it will cause lots of problems. So, taking a look at our directions. Our directions read, a complete journal and general ledger accounts are given below. Your instructor will guide you through the following example. Leonard Witowski owns a service business that uses the following accounts. So kind of they give us there our ledger accounts. And then it says, instruction number 1, post the separate amounts on each line of the journal that need to be posted individually. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to start and we're going to go through and post individually. So to do that, I look at line 1 here, Jaden. And I read going across, and I take a look at, all right, I have the date, I have my account title, source document, post reference, general debit and credit, sales, cash debit. So what I need to look at to post individually is I am only posting the general debit and columns. I am not touching anything right now for my special columns. We do that later. Posting individually means only dealing with these numbers. So when I start at the top, I look, my account title is Leonard Witowski Capital, and Leonard Witowski Capital is being credited for $5,000. You see how I find that? So down here in the bottom, I want you to choose Leonard Witowski Capital. Make sure you choose capital, not drawing. You will notice that we can fill in on that ledger account. We're going to fill in the month, which is March. The date, which is the 1st. Now our post reference, that's where did we get the information from? What page of the journal are we working from? 1. So that's what I put in there is 1. Now, when I look here, they give me options to put all of these numbers in here. You are not going to fill in every single one of these spots. Okay? When I look up here, Leonard Witowski Capital is being credited here for $5,000. So I take this credit of $5,000 and I put it here for $5,000. I'm really taking it from one spot and putting it here. Now, before this was put in my capital account, what was my balance there? Before this $5,000? Zero. So, if I started with 0 and I credited it $5,000, my balance is a credit of $5,000. Okay? So if I have 2 credits, I add. If I have 2 debits, I add. But if I have a debit and a credit, what do I have to do? Subtract. And this is where you need to know your normal balances. Leonard Witowski Capital is an owner's equity account. Normal balance has got to be credit. Should I ever have a debit balance in Leonard Witowski Capital? No. If you do, there's something wrong. The last step that I do is I take this account number 310 and it goes right here in the post reference. When I put in 310 right there, that tells me I have put that transaction into my ledger. That is always the last step of what you do. This is where it's important how you do it. So, I start in my journal, go to my ledger. The last step I take is my account number and I go back to my journal because now I can go to line 2 in my journal, and if I look here, my account title is prepaid insurance. So I'm going to go ahead and click here and click on prepaid insurance. We'll do the same thing. Put in the date of March, date of the 3rd. Post reference is 1 because we're getting from page 1 of the journal. Now prepaid insurance, how much are we affecting that, Jack? As a what? Debit. So I'm going to put 660 here, not 600. I thought you said 600. Okay. So I'm going to take my debit here of 660 and it goes here. I am not making debits and credits equal. I'm just updating my account. Previously, my balance in prepaid insurance was 0. So if I have 0 and I debit it for 660, my new balance should be 660 as a debit. Then I put account number 140 back up on top. Line 3, when I look what it says in the account title, it says supplies. Start with my date, March 4th. Post reference is 1 from journal page 1. Ben, how much is supplies being affected by? As a? Thank you. What is its balance right now, Ben? It will be 78 as a? Debit. Why? Why is it debit? It's a normal balance because it is an asset. Last step, take account number 130, goes back up on top. Line 4 is going to be accounts payable Joshua Supply. And that one is going in as a credit of 78. It previously had a 0 balance, so now it's going to have a credit balance of 78. Account number 210 goes back up top. Now, line 5. Account titles of check. Why? This is from last chapter. Why do we have a check mark here? Because we used what? 2 special columns. Okay? And remember in the last chapter, I told you, don't worry, you don't need to understand why. Just if you put a check mark here, you put a check mark in the post reference. And here's the reason why. We don't post this individually. I told you right now we're posting individually. There is nothing right here in debit in the credit column for general. So when I'm posting individually, that's why I skip over it. And there's a check mark there, meaning I don't have to do anything with it. So that means, okay, I can skip over line 5 and I go to line 6, and we're going to go to accounts receivable, Danielle Brasted. Date is March 9th. Post reference is 1. And how are we affecting accounts receivable, Danielle Brasted? Nick? How are we affecting accounts receivable, Danielle Brasted? Yes. What is the new balance now? As a, say it again? As a debit. I just really having a hard time hearing you. And why is it a debit of 163? Thank you, Garrett. It's important that you understand why. If you can't get this, it's going to kick your butt for the rest of the year. We do posting all year. Date of the 7th. Excuse me, line 7, date of the 12th. We're going to rent expense. March 12th, post reference is 1. And I am debiting it $375. It had a previous balance of 0, so I'm going to debit it for $375 in my balance column. Account number 510 goes back up on top. Line 8, accounts payable, Joshua Supply. All right, this is where now we've already used this account, so this is going to be a little bit different, okay? We already recorded March 4th here, so now I have to go here and put in the 15th. I only need to put the month on there once. I don't need to write the month every time. My post reference is still 1 because it's still page 1. But how am I affecting accounts payable, Joshua Supply right now? Debit or credit? Debit for $50. Would you agree? Now, before this transaction of $50, what is my balance? 78 as a credit. So I have 78 as a credit, and now I just debited it 50. So what is its new balance? 28 as a credit. Why credit? Because what one is bigger? And also, it's a liability. Liabilities need to have a credit balance. We are never going to have accounts payable Joshua Supply owe us money, which would be what would happen if it has a debit balance. So we'll put 28 in there as a credit. And then account number 210 goes on top. Same thing's going to happen on line 9 for accounts receivable, Danielle Brasted. When we look at that, we're going to go ahead and put in the date of the 16th, post reference of 1. And we can see on line 9 of the journal, when I look under my general credit column, it is going through and affecting it as $100. It previously had a debit balance of 163. So Jennifer, what's its new balance? As a, thank you. Account number 120 goes back up on top. Last line we're doing is page 10, which is Leonard Witowski drawing. March 25th, post reference is 1. We're debiting it for $1,000. And the last thing we do is put account number 320 back up on top. Now, when I went through and checked answers, one of the things that comes up here is because you can't see all of your ledger accounts at once, you kind of have to go through and make sure you don't have any mistakes on any individual ones to see if you have red marks on there. So just as a heads up on that one. Go ahead and try the on your own.